I didn't scream. That's what surprises people when they hear my story. They imagine shattered glass, shouting, mascara running down my face while I throw his clothes out the window. But I didn't scream. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, barefoot on cold marble, and watched my husband sleep like a man who believed the world would keep forgiving him. Ethan Walker lay sprawled across our bed, shirtless, one arm thrown over a pillow that didn't smell like me anymore. The air was heavy with a perfume that didn't belong in my house. Sweet, cheap, trying too hard. It clung to the sheets like a lie refusing to leave. The sky outside the floor-to-ceiling windows was turning gray-blue. Dawn. The hour that exposes everything night tries to hide. On the nightstand, his phone lit up again. A vibration. A soft buzz that felt louder than it should. I didn't touch it at first. I didn't need to. The message preview was already there. Last night was incredible. I can't stop smiling. No name needed. I knew the shape of betrayal by then. I'd been married to it. I backed out of the room without making a sound. My heart didn't race, because I wouldn't let it. Panic makes you sloppy. Sloppy gets you hurt. And I had 2 children sleeping down the hall who needed me steady, not shattered. In the bathroom, I locked the door and turned the faucet on. The water ran, steady, controlled, like the version of me I forced myself to be. I looked at my reflection. Alessandra DeLuca stared back at me. Dark hair pulled into a loose knot, bare face, eyes that didn't look like they belonged to a victim. They looked like they belonged to someone who had already decided what would happen next. I pressed my fingertips to the edge of the sink. 3 years. 3 years of him working late. 3 years of dinners alone. Anniversaries forgotten. Excuses delivered with that charming smile people fell for because they wanted to believe he was good. I had wanted to believe it too. But belief doesn't protect children. Power does. And I had power. Ethan just didn't know it yet. I shut off the water, took one breath, and moved. I went to the kids' rooms first. My son, Noah, was curled on his side, his small fist tucked beneath his chin like he was holding on to a dream. My daughter, Lily, was sprawled across her bed in a mess of blankets, hair fanned out like a halo. I stood there for a moment longer than I meant to. My chest tightened. Not from sadness, from something sharper. A promise. I leaned down, kissed Noah's forehead, then Lily's. "Hey," I whispered, voice soft. "Sweethearts, wake up." Noah blinked at me, still half asleep. "Mom?" "It's okay," I said immediately, because mothers say that even when the world isn't. "We're going on a little trip." Lily pushed herself up, rubbing her eyes. "Where's Daddy?" I didn't flinch. I didn't show her the truth, because children don't need the weight of adult sins. "Daddy's sleeping," I said. "We're leaving early." Noah frowned. "Why?" "Because your father is a liar. Because I won't let you grow up watching me shrink. Because I'm done begging for love from a man who treats it like a hobby." But I only smiled. "Because I said so," I answered gently. "Come on." Shoes. They obeyed, because they trusted me. And that trust was the most precious thing I had ever been given. In my closet, I moved fast and quiet. I didn't pack dresses. I didn't pack heels. I didn't pack anything that belonged to a woman who needed permission. I packed what mattered. Jeans, sweaters, sneakers, medication, the kids' favorite pajamas, Noah's worn-out stuffed dog, Lily's pink hairbrush she never let anyone else touch. Then the important things. Passports, birth certificates, insurance cards. My documents, real ones and the ones Ethan didn't know existed. The folder hidden behind the back panel of my jewelry drawer, the one that made me more than Ethan Walker's wife. I wasn't panicking. I was executing. Downstairs, the house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're in a museum where nothing is allowed to change. But change was already happening. Ethan just hadn't woken up to it yet. I walked into the office we shared. his desk polished, his awards on the wall, his ego displayed like art. He liked that room because it made him feel powerful. He never noticed the painting behind my chair. A large landscape, expensive enough to impress guests. Boring enough to make Ethan ignore it. He didn't know the safe was hidden behind it. He didn't know the code was connected to my maiden name, the name I never used around him. I entered the numbers without hesitation. The lock clicked. Inside were things Ethan assumed I would never touch without him. Backup passports, emergency cash, and a small black notebook that was not sentimental, just necessary. Names, numbers, promises, debts. I took what I needed and closed it again. Then I sat at the computer. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for half a second. Not because I doubted, because I remembered. I remembered the day Ethan convinced me to merge our finances, like a real team. He'd kissed my knuckles, looked me in the eyes, told me I was his world. I'd signed the papers with a smile, and I'd made sure the foundation beneath those papers belonged to me, because love doesn't cancel instincts. And I had been raised by a world that punished naive women. Ethan's passwords were predictable. His mother's birthday, his college mascot, a variation of his own name, because men like him think the universe revolves around them. I logged in, checking, savings, investments, his business accounts. Numbers filled the screen, zeros that had always made Ethan feel untouchable. I started moving them. Transfer to account 1, transfer to account 2, liquidate the portfolio, close the credit lines, freeze the cards. One by one, I drained him the way he'd drained my patience for years. My phone buzzed. A security alert. Large transfer pending. Verify. I verified, again and again. When the final confirmation hit. Transaction complete. Something in my chest loosened. Not relief, clarity, because now there was no going back. Upstairs, the kids were dressed. Lily clutched her little backpack like it was an adventure. Noah looked worried, scanning the hallway like he expected Ethan to appear and stop us. I crouched down in front of him. "Hey," I said, meeting his eyes. "You're safe, okay?" He swallowed. "Is Daddy mad?" The question almost cracked me. Not because I cared about Ethan's feelings, but because Noah shouldn't have to worry about his father's moods at his age. "No," I lied smoothly. "Daddy's just tired." Lily stepped closer. "Are we coming back tonight?" I brushed her hair behind her ear, slow and gentle. "We'll see," I said. "But wherever we are, we'll be together." That part wasn't a lie. We walked toward the stairs. And then, like the universe wanted to test my control one last time, I heard a sound behind me. A door opening. Barefoot steps. Ethan's voice, thick with sleep and arrogance. "Alessandra?" My spine went rigid, but my face stayed calm. I turned slowly. He stood at the top of the stairs in sweatpants, hair messy, eyes half-lidded. He looked like a man waking up inside a life he didn't deserve. "What are you doing?" he asked, blinking at the bags. "Why are the kids up?" Noah stepped behind my leg instinctively. Ethan frowned, confused, irritated. Like my actions were an inconvenience, not a consequence. "I'm taking them," I said simply. He laughed once, like I'd told a joke. "Taking them where?" "Somewhere you can't poison with your lies. Somewhere your mistress's perfume won't linger in their beds. Somewhere you can't teach them that women stay no matter what." But I didn't say any of that. "I'm leaving," I said. His smile faded, replaced by that sharp edge he used when charm didn't work. "Leaving? Because of what? What is this?" I looked at him. Really looked. At the man I had given chances to. At the man who thought he could betray me and still come downstairs to breakfast and call himself a father. "I know," I said quietly. His jaw tightened. "Know what?" I lifted my chin. "Don't insult me." His eyes flicked past me, toward the kids. "Alessandra, not in front of them." The audacity of that line, like he had ever protected them from anything. I took Noah's hand, then Lily's. "We're going," I said. Ethan took a step down. "You're not taking my children without talking to me." My gaze didn't change. My voice stayed level. "They're not your possessions," I said. His nostrils flared. "Are you doing this because you're jealous? Because you're insecure?" Jealous, insecure. Like he hadn't brought another woman into our bed. Like he hadn't made me eat loneliness for years. I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because it was predictable. "No," I said. "I'm doing this because I'm done." Ethan's eyes narrowed, searching my face like he expected me to crack. Beg. Explain. Fight for him. He didn't understand that the fight had ended long before this morning. He moved again, faster this time, coming down 2 steps. "Where's your phone?" he demanded. "Give it to me. We'll talk. We'll fix this." Fix. He said it like I was broken. I adjusted my grip on the children's hands. "You can't fix betrayal," I said. Ethan's voice rose. "You're overreacting." Lily flinched at the tone. That was it. That was the line he crossed without even realizing. Upsetting my daughter with his voice. My eyes went cold. "Lower your voice," I said. He blinked, caught off guard. Because he wasn't used to me sounding like that. He tried to recover, scoffing. "Or what? Or you'll learn exactly who you married." But I didn't threaten him. Threats are messy. I just turned and walked. Ethan followed, barefoot thudding down the stairs. "Alessandra, stop. Stop right now." I didn't stop. At the front door I opened it, the morning air rushing in. Cool, clean, like freedom. Ethan grabbed my arm, not hard enough to leave a bruise. Hard enough to remind me he still believed he had the right. Noah gasped. Lily's eyes widened, and in that second, everything in me sharpened to a single point. I looked at Ethan's hand on my arm, then I looked at his face. "Don't," I said. He tightened his grip instead, anger rising. "You can't just—" I twisted my arm free with a quick, controlled movement. Not panicked, practiced. His eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected me to move like that. "You just did," I said. His chest rose, his mouth opening for another argument. My phone buzzed again in my pocket. I didn't need to look. I already knew what was happening. His cards were dying one by one. His access shutting down. His world collapsing quietly, just like he'd collapsed mine. Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at it, irritated, and answered without taking his eyes off me. "What?" he snapped. A pause. Then his face changed. Confusion first, then disbelief. "What do you mean declined?" he said. Another pause. His eyes flicked down the hallway, like the house itself could explain. "What do you mean the accounts are frozen?" He pulled the phone away, staring at the screen like it had betrayed him. I watched him calmly. Because it had. And so had I. Ethan's voice went hoarse. "Alessandra, what did you do?" I stepped outside fully, the kids beside me. The driveway stretched ahead, my car already waiting. I looked back at him one last time. The man who thought my silence meant weakness. The man who thought my patience meant permission. "I took what was mine," I said. He took a step forward, panic in his eyes now. "You can't—" I cut him off, not with shouting but with certainty. "I can," I said. And I did. Noah squeezed my hand. Lily whispered, trembling. "Mom?" I glanced down at them and softened instantly. My voice turned warm. "It's okay," I promised. Then I looked back at Ethan, and the warmth vanished. "You'll survive," I told him. "You always do." His mouth opened, but no words came. For the first time in years, Ethan Walker didn't know what to say. I got into the driver's seat. I buckled my children in. And I drove away. No note. No goodbye. No apology. just absence. Because I didn't disappear to punish him. I disappeared to protect what mattered, and to remind myself of something I had almost forgotten. I wasn't the woman he could betray and keep. I was Alessandra De Luca. And if Ethan had ever truly known what that name meant, he would have been afraid to bring another woman into my bed. As the city blurred behind us, I took the phone from my pocket and turned it on. Messages flooded in instantly. Bank notifications, security alerts, calls from numbers Ethan didn't know existed. Then one message appeared at the top, short, respectful, direct. Matteo Ricci. Where should I meet you, boss? I stared at the screen for a moment, heart steady. Boss, not wife, not mother. Boss. I typed back with one hand, eyes on the road. Not yet. Stay invisible. Let him wake up to the truth slowly. A dot appeared, then another message. Matteo. Understood. Do you want me to handle the mistress? My jaw tightened. Claire Reynolds, the woman who thought sleeping with my husband made her powerful. I thought of the perfume in my sheets. I thought of Lily flinching at Ethan's voice. I thought of Noah asking if Daddy was mad. No, I whispered out loud, then typed it. No, not her. Ethan first. Because the real betrayal wasn't Claire. It was Ethan. He had vowed to protect our family, and he had traded it for a night. I could have destroyed him quickly. One phone call, and he would vanish. But I didn't want him gone. I wanted him awake. I wanted him to feel what I had felt for years, standing alone in silence while someone you trusted treated your love like it was disposable. Noah fell asleep in the back seat, head leaning against the window. Lily hummed softly, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I kept driving, leaving the city, leaving the mansion, leaving the version of my life where I was forced to pretend everything was fine. And for the first time in a long time, the air in my lungs felt clean. My phone buzzed again. A new caller ID, unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something in me said, answer. I tapped the button. Alessandra De Luca, a man's voice said. Deep. Calm. Familiar in a way I didn't expect. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. Who is this? I asked. A pause, then a low exhale, like he'd been waiting for this moment. It's Lucas Hayes, he said. And Ethan Walker just called me beggin'. He says you stole everything and took the kids. I didn't speak. Lucas continued, voice steady. I told him I don't get involved in married people's messes. Smart, I said. Lucas chuckled once, not amused, more like impressed. But then he said something that made me rethink. My eyes narrowed. What did he say? Lucas's voice dropped lower. He said, she's not who you think she is. My pulse didn't spike, but my attention sharpened. Lucas went on, careful with his words. He sounded terrified, Alessandra, not angry, terrified. I stared at the road ahead, the early morning stretching endless and open. What do you want, Lucas? I asked. Another pause. Then quietly he said, I want to know if you're safe. I swallowed, surprised by the question. I didn't trust easily, especially not men connected to Ethan. Lucas was one of Ethan's business friends, rich, respected, the kind of man people listened to. But his voice didn't carry Ethan's arrogance. It carried control. I'm safe, I said. Lucas exhaled. Good. And if I wasn't? I asked before I could stop myself. His answer came without hesitation. Then whoever made you unsafe would regret it, he said. A chill ran through me, not fear. Recognition. Because that tone, that certainty, it sounded like my world. Lucas Hayes wasn't a man who begged. He was a man who handled. I kept driving, eyes forward. Why are you calling me? I asked. Lucas's voice softened slightly. Because Ethan called me first, and I realized something. What? He hesitated just long enough to make the next words land harder. I realized you didn't run, he said. You planned. Silence filled the line for a beat. Then he added, "And the kind of woman who can do what you just did is the kind of woman I don't want as an enemy." I let out a slow breath. "You're not my enemy," I said carefully. Lucas's voice turned quiet. "I'd like to keep it that way." I glanced at my children in the rearview mirror, asleep and peaceful. Then I looked back at the road, the future waiting like a closed door about to open. "We'll see," I said. Lucas answered with a low, calm certainty. "We will." And as I ended the call, I didn't know it yet, but that conversation was the first crack in the wall I'd built around my heart, because Ethan had broken my trust. But Lucas Hayes, he was about to challenge everything I thought I knew about love. And the most dangerous part? A part of me, small, stubborn, still alive, was ready to let him. I didn't sleep much that first day. Not because I was afraid Ethan would find me. He couldn't. Not yet. I didn't sleep because silence is loud when you've just ripped your life in half. The kids fell asleep early in the hotel room I'd checked into under a name no one in Ethan's world knew. Their cheeks were flushed from the long drive. Their bodies relaxed in that way only children can relax, because they believe the adults will catch the world if it falls. I sat in the dark on the edge of the bed, listening to their breathing, letting it anchor me. Then my phone lit up. One call after another. Ethan. Ethan again. Unknown numbers. His assistant. His lawyer. His mother. I didn't answer. I watched the screen like it was a storm passing outside a window, and I stayed perfectly still. Because if I answered, I'd hear his voice. And Ethan's voice had a way of dragging women back into the same cage they'd just escaped. No, not me. Not anymore. I waited until the call slowed. Then I opened the banking app again. Not because I doubted what I'd done, but because I needed to see it. To confirm my hands hadn't shaken. The balances were where I'd put them. Safe. Locked. Gone from him. A soft knock sounded at the door. My body went instantly alert. Not panicked. Focused. I didn't reach for a weapon. I didn't need to. I reached for information. I checked the peephole. A man stood there in a dark coat, posture straight, hands visible. He didn't look like hotel staff. He looked like the kind of man who could stand in a room full of violence and make it behave. Matteo Ricci. I opened the door just enough to see his eyes. He dipped his head. Respect. Always. "Boss," he said quietly. "I'm here." I stepped aside, and he entered like a shadow, careful not to wake the children. He took one look at their sleeping forms, then looked back at me. "You did the right thing," he said. I didn't ask how he found me. If Matteo wanted to find me, he would. The question wasn't if he could. The question was if anyone else could. "Is he looking?" I asked. Matteo's mouth tightened. "He woke up an hour ago. He's calling everyone. He's panicking." "Good. Does he know where we are?" I asked. "No," Matteo said. "He can't track your phone. He tried. He doesn't understand why it's not working." Of course he didn't. Ethan thought marriage made him owner. He didn't realize I'd never stopped being myself. Matteo slid his phone from his pocket and showed me a live feed. Ethan in our kitchen, hair messy, face pale, pacing like a man who'd stepped off a cliff and only then looked down. He had the phone pressed to his ear, his voice loud. "I don't care what you have to do. Fix it," he snapped. "My cards are all declining, every single one." He stopped listening. Then his face turned red. "What do you mean insufficient funds? That's impossible." Matteo angled the camera slightly. I could see Ethan's hand slam against the counter. A glass shook. The sound didn't reach me, but I could imagine it. Ethan's rage was always theatrical. He tried another number. "Hey, listen. I need you to wire me money," he said, forcing his voice into something almost friendly. "It's temporary. Alessandra, there's been a misunderstanding." He paused again. Then his eyes widened. "No, I'm not asking," he hissed. "I'm telling you. I need it now." He ended the call and paced harder, like he could walk the money back into existence. Then he looked up, straight at the camera. For 1 second, I felt like he could see me. His lips moved. "What did you do?" he whispered. I stared at the screen, emotionless. I'd done what he never believed I could. I'd taken everything he valued most. Not the mansion, not the cars, not his reputation. Control. Matteo lowered the phone. "He's calling your name like it's a prayer," he said. "But it sounds like fear." I exhaled slowly. Fear was useful. Fear made men careful. "Where is Claire?" I asked. Matteo's eyes went colder. "She left the house at dawn. She's been posting online, smiling. She thinks she won." My jaw tightened. Claire Reynolds was the type of woman who confused attention with power. She didn't understand that sleeping with Ethan Walker didn't make her special. It made her disposable. "What about the kids' schools?" I asked. "Already handled," Matteo said. "No access, no information released. I sent the right people the right words. The right people." I didn't ask what that meant. Matteo didn't work with threats that left fingerprints. He worked with persuasion that felt like inevitability. I nodded. "Good." Matteo studied me for a moment. "And you?" he asked. "Are you okay?" I almost laughed. "Okay." As if a woman like me was allowed to be okay. "I'm focused," I said. Matteo accepted that answer, because he knew me. He moved toward the window, checked the street below, then turned back. "There's more," he said. My gaze sharpened. "Tell me." "He tried to go to the bank," Matteo said. "In person." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" Matteo's mouth twitched slightly, the closest he ever came to amusement. "They told him he needed your authorization." A small, satisfied silence filled the room. Ethan, standing at a marble counter in a bank, looking at a teller like she'd betrayed him, realizing the accounts weren't his. That was a humiliation he'd never recover from. Matteo continued. Then he went to the office. He tried to access the business accounts from the server. I leaned forward slightly. "Did he get in?" "No," Matteo said. "Your restrictions held." I nodded once, because I'd built that system for a reason. I'd always known there might come a day when I'd need to disappear fast and leave someone behind with nothing but regret. I just hadn't thought that someone would be my husband. Matteo's phone vibrated again. He glanced down, then looked at me. "He's live." "Show me," I said. Matteo held the screen up again. Ethan was in our living room now, standing in front of the fireplace like a man about to audition for sympathy. He had his phone on selfie mode, talking to it. "No one is saying she stole anything," he was saying. I don't know what's happening. She took the kids and..." He paused dramatically, rubbing his forehead. "She's not well," he added. My stomach turned, but my face didn't change. Of course he'd go there. When men can't control you, they label you unstable, crazy, emotional. It's their favorite weapon because it lets them look innocent while they sharpen the knife. Ethan kept talking. "If anyone knows where she is, please tell her to call me. I'm worried. This isn't like her." He forced a weak smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then someone off camera said something, and Ethan snapped his head toward them, his expression flashing hard before he masked it again. The camera angle shook slightly. His voice dropped lower. "Not now," he hissed. Then he turned back to the phone, softer again. "I just want my family back," he said. My hands clenched. He wanted his family back because he'd lost his wallet, not because he missed us. Matteo lowered the phone. "Do you want it taken down?" he asked. I thought for a second. If I shut Ethan up too fast, he'd go quiet and plot. Desperation can make men dangerous, but silence can make them lethal. "Let him talk," I said. "He's showing everyone who he is." Mateo nodded. Understood. I walked to the bathroom and splashed water on my face, staring at my eyes again. They were steady. When I came out, Mateo was still standing near the window, scanning like he could see danger coming from miles away. Lucas Hayes called, he said without turning. I froze for half a second. Why? I asked. Mateo glanced at me. He called Ethan. Ethan begged him. Then Lucas called you. So Mateo knew. Of course he did. Did you listen? I asked. Mateo's gaze didn't flinch. Yes. I didn't like that, but I didn't waste energy on it either. Mateo had saved my life more than once, and he wouldn't betray me. What did he say? I asked. Mateo tilted his head slightly. He said he wants to know if you're safe. He said he doesn't want you as an enemy. I stared at the sleeping children. Lucas Hayes, a man from Ethan's world, but not like Ethan. Calm, controlled. The kind of man who didn't have to raise his voice to take up space. What do you think? I asked quietly. Mateo studied me. I think he's dangerous, he said. My eyes flicked to him. Because he's close to Ethan. No, Mateo said. Because he's not. That answer made my pulse shift. Mateo continued. Ethan is loud, predictable, selfish. Men like him break things because they're weak. Lucas Hayes is quiet. Men like that break things because they can. I held that thought for a moment. Then I nodded. Keep watching him. Mateo's phone buzzed again. He looked down, then his expression hardened. Boss, he said. Ethan is at the house again, and he's not alone. I stepped closer. Who's with him? Mateo turned the screen so I could see. A woman in a fitted cream coat, long blonde hair perfectly styled, lipstick too bright for morning, Claire Reynolds. She was standing beside Ethan like she belonged there, like she'd earned the right to be in my space. She leaned close to his ear, whispering. Ethan nodded, jaw tight. Claire smiled. And then, as if she could feel the universe watching, she lifted her chin and looked directly into the camera. She waved. My blood went cold. Mateo watched my face carefully. Do you want me to? No, I said sharply. Mateo paused. I took a breath, controlled my voice. Not yet, I said. If she wants to play queen in my house, let her. She'll learn the difference between attention and power. Mateo's eyes narrowed. And Ethan? I stared at the screen as Claire slipped her arm through Ethan's like they were a couple. Like she wasn't the reason my daughter had flinched. Like she hadn't just slept in my bed. He's about to learn too, I said. Because Ethan thought I'd disappear and fall apart somewhere quietly. He thought I'd come back crying, begging him to take me. He thought wrong. I walked back to the bed, sat beside my children, and let the anger in my chest turn into something clean and sharp. A plan. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Ethan. A new message. Unknown number. You don't know me, but I know what Ethan did. If you need help disappearing, I can do that. My eyes narrowed. Mateo stepped closer. Show me. I handed him the phone. He read the message, then looked up slowly, his face unreadable. Who is it? I asked. Mateo didn't answer right away. He typed something into his own phone, fast, then checked another screen. Then he looked at me. That number is registered under a shell line, he said. Protected. My pulse stayed steady. Protected numbers meant one of two things. Mafia or law enforcement. And either one could ruin everything. Mateo's gaze hardened. Do not reply, he said. I nodded. But the message sat there like a hook. Because whoever sent it knew Ethan cheated, which meant someone had been watching. And if someone was watching Ethan, they were watching me too. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The room felt smaller suddenly. The quiet felt sharper. I'd vanished. But maybe I hadn't vanished enough. Mateo's voice cut through my thoughts. Boss, he said quietly. Ethan just posted again. I looked at him. Mateo held up the phone. Ethan was on camera, but this time his face was different. Not confused, not pleading, angry. He stared into the lens like he was speaking to me directly. "Alessandra," he said slowly, voice low. "You think you can take my kids and my money and disappear?" My stomach tightened. He leaned closer to the camera. "You forget something," he murmured. "I know things about you too." My breath stopped for half a second. Mateo's eyes snapped to me. Ethan smiled, small, ugly, confident. "And if you don't come back," he said, "I'll make sure everyone hears them." I didn't move for several seconds after Ethan's video ended. Not because I was afraid, because I was calculating. Threats only work when the person making them believes they still hold leverage. Ethan's problem was simple. He had always confused proximity with power. He thought knowing pieces of my life meant he owned the story. He didn't. He only knew the version of me I had allowed him to marry. Mateo watched my face carefully. "He's bluffing," he said. But he didn't sound completely convinced. "Maybe," I replied. "Or maybe he finally realized he's already lost." I stood and walked toward the window, careful not to wake the kids. Outside, the city looked calm, indifferent to my war. Cars moved. People lived their ordinary lives. No one knew a man was unraveling a few miles away. That anonymity was a gift. "What exactly does he know?" Mateo asked. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was uncomfortable. Ethan knew fragments, shadows, half-truths he'd overheard and dismissed because they didn't fit the image he wanted of me. He knew my maiden name wasn't common. He knew my father had died abroad, under circumstances I never explained. He knew I had money before him, but he never asked how much or where it came from. Men like Ethan don't investigate what makes them feel small. "He knows enough to sound convincing," I said finally, "but not enough to survive using it." Mateo nodded once. "Then we move first." "No," I said calmly. "We wait." Mateo frowned slightly. "Waiting gives him time." "Yes," I agreed, "and time will make him reckless." Reckless men talk, and talking men make mistakes. I picked up my phone and opened a secure line, one Ethan had never seen me use. The screen flashed once, then a familiar name appeared. Vittorio De Luca. My uncle. The man who had raised me after my parents died. The man who had taught me that love without power was just a story people told themselves to sleep at night. The call connected instantly. "Alessandra," Vittorio said, his voice deep, steady. "You disappeared." "I handled it," I said. "I assumed," he replied. Mateo informed me. Of course he had. "I didn't call for permission," I said. Vittorio gave a low chuckle. "You never do." I leaned against the wall, eyes on the sleeping children. "Ethan is threatening exposure." There was a pause. Then Vittorio said, "Of what?" I smiled slightly. "Exactly." Vittorio's tone turned colder. "Do you want him silenced?" The question was casual, not cruel, just practical. I thought of Ethan's face that morning, confused, furious, desperate. "No," I said. "Not yet." "Why?" Vittorio asked. "Because silence would make him a mystery," I said. "And I want him predictable." Another pause. Then Vittorio spoke carefully. "You've grown patient." "I had children," I replied. "That changes women," he said. "It sharpens them," I corrected. Vittorio hummed in agreement. "Very well. I'll keep eyes on him, quietly." "Thank you," I said. "And Alessandra," he added, "if he says your name out loud." "I know," I said. "Then it ends." The call disconnected. Mateo watched me closely. "Family?" "Yes." He nodded, reassured. "Good." I wasn't sure it was good. Family was power, but it was also history. And history had a way of pulling you back into the world you'd fought to soften for your children. I didn't want them growing up inside my shadows, but I would use those shadows if I had to. Mateo's phone vibrated again. "He's losing allies," Mateo said, scrolling. "People are distancing themselves. His business partner just resigned. Investors are nervous." I closed my eyes briefly. Good. When men like Ethan fall, they fall socially before they fall financially. Pride bleeds out faster when an audience is watching. "Claire?" I asked. Mateo's jaw tightened. "She's still with him." Of course she was. Claire Reynolds had mistaken chaos for opportunity. She thought standing beside a collapsing man made her important. It only made her visible. "Let her stay," I said. Mateo looked at me sharply. "Boss." "She's useful," I said. "Ethan will talk around her. He'll boast. He'll complain. And she'll listen." "And repeat," Mateo finished. "Yes. Because women like Claire always repeated things. Not out of strategy, but out of hunger." Mateo nodded slowly. "I'll make sure she's heard." The day stretched forward in careful steps. I ordered food. I kept the kids inside. I played a board game with them on the hotel carpet like nothing in the world was wrong. That was the hardest part. Smiling while building an exit strategy. That evening, Noah looked up at me suddenly. "Mom?" "Yes, baby?" "Is Daddy in trouble?" The question hit deeper than I expected. I knelt in front of him, meeting his eyes. "Daddy made some bad choices," I said, "and now he has to deal with them." "Is that because of us?" Lily asked quietly. My heart tightened instantly. "No," I said firmly. "Never because of you. Never." They watched me, searching my face for truth. Children always know when you're lying. So I made sure I wasn't. "You are the best thing in my life," I said softly. "Everything I do is to keep you safe." They seemed satisfied with that. Later, after they slept, I sat alone again. And that was when the past came knocking. Not through memory, through the present. My phone lit up with a new message. No number, no name, just text. "He's already lying about you." I stared at the words. Then another message followed. "He says you're unstable, dangerous. He says he protected the kids from you." My jaw clenched. That lie was unforgivable. I typed one word. "Who is this?" The response came instantly. "Someone who knows Ethan is a fool." I stood, tension coiling in my spine. "How do you know what he's saying?" I typed. A pause this time. Longer. Then, "Because he said it to the wrong person." My pulse slowed. This wasn't a panicked informant. This was someone calm, controlled. "What do you want?" I asked. Another pause. Then, "To make sure he doesn't destroy something he can't afford to." I exhaled slowly. "Why do you care?" The typing dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Because men like him make messes, and women like you clean them up alone." I stared at the screen. That sentence landed differently. It wasn't flattery. It was recognition. Before I could reply, Mateo knocked softly and entered. "Boss," he said. "Ethan just gave an interview." I looked up sharply. "An interview?" "Yes," Mateo said grimly. "A local outlet. He's escalating." He handed me the phone. Ethan sat across from a reporter, face composed but eyes wild. He spoke with careful sorrow. "I don't want to say too much," he said, "but my wife has always had secrets. I tried to protect our children from that side of her." My grip tightened. He continued, "She's not who people think she is." The reporter leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Ethan hesitated, then sighed like a martyr. "I can't go into details, but I fear for my kids." I shut off the video. The room felt suddenly colder. Mateo's voice was low. "He's painting you as the threat." "Yes," I said, "which means he's desperate." "Do we respond?" Matteo asked. I shook my head. Not publicly. Then how? I looked at my phone again, at the unknown contact, at the calm words, at the fact that someone close enough to Ethan to hear his lies had chosen to warn me. I typed, "If you really want to help, tell me what he's planning." The response came slower this time, deliberate. "He thinks fear will bring you back." He's wrong. Another message followed. "Tomorrow morning he's going to file an emergency motion for custody." My chest tightened, not with panic, but with fury. "On what grounds?" I asked. "Instability, disappearance, dangerous associations." I closed my eyes briefly. So that was it. He wasn't just threatening my reputation. He was coming for my children. Matteo watched my face change. "What is it?" "He's crossing a line," I said quietly. Matteo's voice hardened. "Then he dies." "No," I said instantly. Matteo froze. I opened my eyes and looked at him. "No death. Not now. Not ever, if I can help it." Matteo studied me. "He's going after your children." "I know," I said, "which means this stops being quiet." I stood up, every piece of me locking into place. "He wanted to expose me," I continued. "He wanted to scare me back into submission." Matteo nodded. "And instead," I said calmly, "he's about to learn exactly who he married." I picked up my phone and opened another secure line. This one was older, deeper, heavier. A name appeared. Counsel. I pressed call. When the voice on the other end answered, it wasn't warm. "Yes?" "It's Alessandra De Luca," I said. There was a pause. Then, "We heard you disappeared." "I did," I said, "but now I'm back." Silence. Then the voice said carefully, "What do you need?" I didn't hesitate. "I need my name restored," I said, "and I need my children untouched." Another pause. Then, "And your husband?" I looked at the dark window, my reflection staring back at me, no longer pretending to be small. "He's about to lose everything he tried to use against me," I said. "Legally, publicly, completely." The voice answered slowly, "This will be loud." "Yes," I said. "That's the point." The line went dead. Matteo exhaled. "So we're done hiding?" "Yes," I said. Because if Ethan wanted to drag my name into the light, then he was about to discover what it meant. I returned to the bed, sat beside my sleeping children, and brushed Lily's hair back gently. "I tried to give you peace," I whispered. "Not to them, but to the past. You chose war." And as the night deepened around us, one truth became clear. Ethan Walker didn't know it yet, but tomorrow, the world would stop asking who Alessandra De Luca was, and start remembering. By the time morning came, the city already knew Ethan Walker was in trouble. Not the full story, not the truth. But whispers don't need facts to spread. They only need doubt, and Ethan had handed the world plenty of that. I woke before my alarm, instinct pulling me up the way it always did when something was shifting. The kids were still asleep, their faces calm, unaware that their father had tried to weaponize them overnight. I watched them for a long moment. Then I stood, stretched the tension from my shoulders, and became what I needed to be. Not a wife, not a fugitive, a decision. Matteo arrived just after sunrise, silent as ever. He didn't knock this time. He never did when things moved into this phase. "They filed," he said simply. I nodded. "Emergency custody motion." "Yes," Matteo said, "but it's already collapsing." I raised an eyebrow. "That fast?" Matteo's mouth curved faintly. Ethan underestimated how many people prefer the truth over his version of it. "Or how many people dislike him," I said. "That too." I poured coffee and handed him a cup. "Details." Matteo leaned against the counter. "The motion was flagged within minutes. The judge assigned isn't sympathetic to grandstanding, and your documentation," he paused, "is thorough." I smiled thinly. I'd never done anything halfway. Not marriage, not motherhood, and certainly not preparation. He also made a mistake, Mateo continued. He listed you as unemployed. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. Of course he did. He thought it would help his case, Mateo said. It did the opposite. And because unemployed women don't own offshore assets, registered trusts, and international legal teams. Unemployed women don't disappear without leaving chaos behind. And Claire? I asked. Mateo's eyes hardened. She's giving interviews, small blogs, social media, playing the victim. What's her angle? I asked. That you're controlling, Mateo said. Cold. That Ethan was trapped. I shook my head slowly. She slept with a married man and wants sympathy. Some people will give it, Mateo said. Let them, I replied. They always do, until the bill comes due. Mateo's phone vibrated. He glanced down, then looked up. Lucas Hayes is requesting a meeting. That name landed differently now. Where? I asked. Neutral ground, Mateo said. Private, secure. I considered it. Lucas Hayes had stepped into this story without forcing his way in. He hadn't threatened. He hadn't begged. He'd offered information and distance, two things men rarely give women they want to control. What do you think? I asked. Mateo hesitated. I think he's dangerous, he said honestly, but not in the way Ethan is. Explain. Ethan wants to win, Mateo said. Lucas wants to understand. That's worse, or better. Depends on the man. I took a breath. Set it up, I said. Mateo nodded. Today? Yes. Because if Ethan was going to keep escalating, I needed to know exactly where Lucas Hayes stood. The meeting place was a private dining room in a quiet restaurant. No windows facing the street. Controlled access. No ambient noise. Mateo checked the perimeter personally before allowing Lucas in. Lucas arrived alone. That told me more than any background report ever could. He wore a dark jacket, no tie, his presence calm without being soft. He didn't scan the room like a predator, and he didn't posture like a man trying to impress. He met my eyes directly. Alessandra, he said. Lucas, I replied. He didn't offer his hand. Neither did I. Respect recognized respect. I appreciate you agreeing to meet, he said. I know you have no reason to trust me. Trust isn't the same as curiosity, I said. Sit. He did. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Silence stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was measured. Lucas broke it first. I'm not here on Ethan's behalf, he said. And I'm not here to ask you to go back. Good, I replied. Because I won't. I assumed, he said. That's why I'm here. I tilted my head slightly. Then speak. Lucas exhaled slowly. Ethan came to me last night. He wanted money, influence. He wanted me to say things publicly that weren't true. What did you say? I asked. I said no. Simple. Clean. Why? I asked. Lucas met my gaze. Because I've known Ethan for 15 years, and I've watched him burn bridges, lie to people who trusted him, and blame women for consequences he earned. I studied him. That didn't stop you from doing business with him. No, Lucas said calmly, but it stopped me from protecting him. Fair. I also did my own research, he continued, which brings me to the part where I'm honest with you. Go on. I know who you are, Lucas said. Mateo shifted slightly behind me. I didn't. Define no, I said. I know you didn't marry Ethan for his money, Lucas said. I know your assets predate him. I know the DeLuca name isn't decorative. My pulse stayed steady. And? I prompted. And I know Ethan has no idea how close he is to destroying himself, Lucas finished. Silence fell again. Why tell me this? I asked. Lucas's voice dropped. Because he's about to cross from stupid into fatal. Fatal for whom? I asked. Lucas held my gaze. for everyone involved, including your children. That sharpened my attention. Explain, I said. Ethan is desperate, Lucas said. He's not thinking long-term. He's talking to people he shouldn't, naming names, hinting at things he doesn't understand. Mateo's jaw tightened. What things? I asked. Lucas paused. You. That answer didn't surprise me. He thinks exposure is leverage, Lucas continued. He doesn't realize it's a fuse. And you're here to stop him? I asked. Lucas shook his head. No. I'm here to give you an option. I raised an eyebrow. Which is? To end this without blood, Lucas said, without turning your children's future into collateral damage. My fingers curled slowly on the table. Speak carefully, I said. Because that sounds like advice. Lucas nodded. It is. From someone who's seen men like Ethan spiral. And what makes you think I need advice? I asked. Lucas's eyes softened just slightly. Because you're protecting your kids, and protection sometimes means restraint. I considered him for a long moment. Then I spoke. You came here to negotiate, I said, but you don't have anything I want. Lucas didn't flinch. I have timing. That made me pause. Ethan is about to give another interview, Lucas said. This one bigger, national. I felt the air shift. He plans to suggest you're dangerous, Lucas continued. Not mentally, criminally. Mateo swore under his breath. And you know this because? I asked. Lucas met my eyes. Because he asked me to set it up. The room went still. And you declined? I asked. I delayed, Lucas said. Bought you 48 hours. I leaned back slowly. Why? I asked again. Lucas's voice dropped, honest now. Because when I looked into you, I didn't see a monster. I saw a woman who had outgrown the man she married. That wasn't pity. That was recognition. What do you want in return? I asked. Lucas didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet. I want you to walk away clean. I almost laughed. You're asking the wrong woman, I said. I don't walk away. I finish. Lucas nodded once. Then finish in a way that doesn't haunt your kids. That hit deeper than anything else he'd said. I stood. The meeting was over. Thank you for the warning, I said. And for the time. Lucas rose as well. That's it? Yes, I replied. Because the rest isn't yours to carry. He studied me. Something unreadable in his eyes. If you ever need someone who understands both worlds, he said carefully, you know how to find me. I already do, I said. Mateo escorted him out. When the door closed, Mateo turned to me. He's right about one thing. I looked at him. Which? This is getting loud. Yes, I agreed. But not uncontrollable, I added. I picked up my phone and opened a document I hadn't touched in years. A file that contained truths Ethan had never been meant to see. I scrolled. Names, dates, records. Evidence, not illegal, just devastating. He wanted exposure, I said quietly. He's going to get it. Mateo nodded slowly. Public? Yes, I said, but on my terms. I closed the file and locked my phone. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that a man who had mistaken betrayal for power was about to learn the cost of underestimating a woman who had already survived worse. Ethan Walker thought he was dragging me into the light. What he didn't understand was that I'd been standing there all along, and when the truth finally surfaced, it wouldn't burn me. It would burn him. By the time Ethan's second interview aired, I was already 3 steps ahead of him. That's the thing about men who rely on noise. They never imagine someone moving quietly while they talk. The interview was polished, carefully framed. Ethan sat across from a well-known host, posture humble, voice measured, eyes heavy with manufactured concern. I've stayed silent long enough, he said. I tried to protect my children. But my wife has a past, one that puts them at risk. I watched the screen without blinking. No rage, No panic. Just confirmation. He didn't name me outright. He didn't have the courage for that. Instead, he used words like associations, foreign money, dangerous connections. He let implication do the work. Cowardice always hides behind suggestion. Matteo stood beside me, arms crossed. He's choosing the story carefully, he said. He thinks ambiguity will protect him. It won't, I replied. It will condemn him. Because when you accuse without proof, you invite investigation. An investigation was my strongest ally. The interview ended with the host nodding gravely, promising to look deeper. Ethan thanked him like a man convinced he'd just won. I turned off the screen. Release phase 1, I said. Matteo didn't ask questions. He never did at this stage. Within minutes, the first wave went live. Not a statement from me, not an emotional response. Documents, public records, legal filings, financial disclosures. Clean, verifiable, impossible to spin. The headline didn't even include my name. Ethan Walker's emergency custody filing dismissed after financial misrepresentation. Then another. Sources confirm Walker diverted marital assets prior to affair. Then the one that made him choke on air. Court documents reveal. Ethan Walker lied under oath. I didn't need to attack him. I let facts do it. Matteo's phone buzzed nonstop. He's losing control, he said. His lawyer just resigned. Good, I said calmly. That one was sloppy. The kids were in the next room, drawing on the floor, blissfully unaware that their father's carefully built image was collapsing in real time. That mattered to me. I wouldn't let them see the fall. But I would make sure it happened. An hour later, Claire Reynolds tried to insert herself back into the narrative. She posted a video. Tears. Soft lighting. A carefully chosen angle. I never wanted this, she said, voice trembling. I was manipulated. I was told she was dangerous. That Ethan was protecting his children. I stared at the screen. She really believed that playing fragile would erase her fingerprints. Do we shut her down? Matteo asked. No, I said. We correct her. Within minutes, a second wave followed. Time-stamped messages, hotel receipts, a photo she'd forgotten to delete, taken in my bedroom mirror, my sheets visible behind her. No commentary, no insults, just truth. Claire's video disappeared less than 20 minutes later. Her accounts followed. Silence fell where noise had been. Matteo looked at me. You're dismantling them without touching them. That's the only way to make it permanent, I said. Violence creates martyrs. Exposure creates ghosts. By evening, Ethan was no longer talking. He was hiding. His house went dark. His phone stopped responding. His social media vanished one account at a time. Men like him always disappear when the story turns against them. That's when they realize they were never the protagonist. Matteo entered quietly. Lucas Hayes is requesting another meeting. I didn't look up from my phone. No. He says it's urgent, Matteo added, and that it's about the kids. That made me pause. Where? I asked. Same place, Matteo said. I considered it for a brief moment. Then I nodded. 30 minutes. When I arrived, Lucas was already there. He looked different tonight, less composed, more alert, like a man who'd seen something shift and understood the consequences. You moved faster than I expected, he said as I sat. I warned you, I replied. I finish. Lucas exhaled. Ethan's finished. Yes, I agreed. But he doesn't know it yet. Lucas leaned forward. He went to the authorities. That sharpened the room instantly. Which ones? I asked. Federal, Lucas said. He's claiming you're involved in organized crime. I held his gaze. And they listened, Lucas said, because he used the right words. Matteo's jaw tightened behind me. I smiled slightly. Good, I said. Lucas blinked. That's not the reaction I expected. No, I said. Because you don't understand the difference between accusation and jurisdiction. Lucas frowned. Explain. He can accuse me all he wants, I said calmly. But jurisdiction requires evidence, and jurisdiction across borders requires permission. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Permission he doesn't have. Lucas studied me carefully now. You're not worried? No, I said. I'm relieved. Why? He asked. Because now everything becomes official, I replied. And official means controlled. Lucas sat back slowly. You planned for this. I planned for every outcome, I said, including betrayal. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You know this ends him. Yes, I said, but it also frees him. Lucas looked at me sharply. That's not what most people would say. I'm not most people, I replied, because Ethan had built his identity on lies. Stripping them away would leave him empty, but alive. And emptiness is a harsher punishment than death. When I returned to the hotel, Mateo was waiting. They're moving, he said, but carefully. No warrants, no raids. Exactly as expected, I said. And Ethan? He asked. I glanced at my phone, a single missed call. Ethan. The first one since he'd gone silent. I didn't return it. Instead, I typed a message. All communication goes through counsel. I sent it. Then I blocked the number. Mateo watched me. That's it? Yes, I said. That's it. Because closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from certainty. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I stood by the window and allowed myself one quiet moment. Not grief. Release. I thought of the woman I'd been when I married Ethan. Softer. Hopeful. Willing to make herself smaller for the comfort of love. That woman had died slowly over years. Tonight, I buried her completely. My phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. He won't come back from this. I stared at the words, then replied. Neither will I. Because when you stop surviving and start choosing, you don't return to who you were. You become who you were always meant to be. And somewhere in the dark, Ethan Walker was finally learning the truth. He hadn't lost his wife. He'd awakened a queen. The silence after the collapse was louder than the chaos before it. For the first time since I disappeared, there were no alerts screaming across my phone. No breaking headlines. No frantic calls from people pretending they had always been neutral. Ethan Walker had fallen out of the conversation. That was how I knew it was real. Men like him don't go quietly when they think they still matter. They fight. They shout. They threaten. Ethan did none of that. He vanished, which meant the fear had finally reached bone. I woke before sunrise again, but this time it wasn't tension that pulled me from sleep. It was something softer. A strange stillness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. The kids were safe. For the first time since I'd left the house, that truth felt permanent. I made breakfast myself. No staff, no urgency. Pancakes, too many chocolate chips. Noah laughed when I flipped one badly and it landed crooked. Mom, that one looks broken, he said. I smiled. So do some things we keep. Lily giggled. It's still yummy. Exactly. After breakfast, Mateo arrived with updates, but his tone was different now. Less tactical, more reflective. The investigation stalled, he said. Ethan's claims collapsed under scrutiny. He couldn't substantiate anything. I nodded, because there was nothing to substantiate. The authorities aren't interested anymore, Mateo continued. They won't be. Good. And Ethan? I asked. Mateo hesitated. He's selling what he can. Liquidating. Quietly. Running. I felt no triumph. Only distance. What about visitation? Mateo asked carefully. I took a breath. Supervised. Temporary. If the court insists. Mateo nodded. You're being generous. No, I corrected. I'm being final. Because my children deserved answers someday, and those answers needed to come from a place of stability, not rage. Mateo studied me for a moment. Lucas Hayes called again. I didn't answer immediately. Lucas had been orbiting the edges of this war without trying to control it. He warned when it mattered, stepped back when it didn't. That restraint stayed with me. What does he want? I asked. To see you, Mateo said. No conditions. I thought of his voice, calm, unassuming, dangerous in a way that didn't feel reckless. Tell him yes, I said, but not here. The place I chose was quiet and open, an outdoor cafe overlooking the water. Daylight, public, normal. I wanted to see how he existed in a world without shadows. Lucas arrived on time. No entourage, no drama. He looked human, less armor, more presence. Alessandra, he said. Lucas. We sat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Boats drifted in the distance. The city breathed around us. I won't pretend I don't know what happened, Lucas said finally, or how thoroughly you handled it. I didn't do it for spectacle, I replied. I did it to end it. He nodded. I know. He watched me closely, then asked, Are you okay? It was a simple question. Not strategic, not loaded, just human. I considered it honestly. Yes, I said. I am. Lucas smiled slightly. Good. We ordered coffee. Normal conversation followed. About the kids, about work, about nothing dangerous at all. And that was when it happened. I relaxed. Not fully, but enough to notice. That I wasn't guarding every word. That my body wasn't braced for impact. That I didn't feel watched. You don't flinch anymore, Lucas said suddenly. I looked at him. I beg your pardon? You did before, he said gently. When people mentioned Ethan, or money, or power. And now? I asked. Now you look like someone who already won, he said. I considered that. No, I replied. I look like someone who stopped fighting. Lucas leaned back, studying me. Those are usually the most dangerous people. I smiled faintly. I've been told. A pause settled between us, comfortable, unexpected. Then Lucas spoke again, quieter now. I didn't come here to interfere, he said. But I did want to say this. I waited. You didn't deserve what he did to you, Lucas said. And you didn't deserve to carry it alone. The words landed carefully. No savior tone. No claim of ownership. Just acknowledgement. Something inside me shifted. Thank you, I said. When we stood to leave, Lucas hesitated. If you ever want something uncomplicated, he said slowly, I'd like to see you again. No agendas, no wars. I met his eyes. Uncomplicated is relative, I said. He smiled. Then let's call it honest. I nodded. That I can do. The next weeks passed quietly. The legal matters resolved themselves into routines. The kids started a new school. We moved into a house that felt like a beginning, not a fortress. And Lucas stayed present. He didn't rush. He didn't intrude. He showed up when invited and disappeared when I needed space. One evening, after the kids were asleep, he sat across from me on the back porch, the night warm and still. You're different with them, he said softly. With who? Your children, he replied. You're powerful everywhere else, but with them, you're gentle. I looked through the window at their rooms. They're the reason I survived. Lucas nodded. They're lucky. So am I said. Another silence. Then Lucas spoke, choosing his words carefully. I don't want to replace anything, he said. I don't want to be a rebound or a reaction. I turned to him fully now. What do you want? I asked. I want to build something real, he said. At your pace. On your terms. No pressure. No demand. Just an offer. I studied him. Then I reached out and took his hand. Not possession. Connection. That's the only way this works, I said. His grip tightened slightly. Steady. Certain. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was choosing survival. I was choosing desire. Later that night, when Lucas left, I stood alone in the quiet house and felt something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Hope. Not the naive kind. The earned kind. My phone buzzed once. A final update from Mateo. Walker signed the settlement. He won't contest custody again. I closed my eyes. It was over. The war, the fear, the waiting. I looked down the hallway toward my children's rooms, then out into the night beyond the porch. For years, love had been something I gave while shrinking. Now, it was something that met me where I stood. And as I turned off the lights and went inside, one truth echoed clearly through me. I hadn't just escaped a betrayal. I had reclaimed my life, and something beautiful was beginning. The courtroom was silent when the judge signed the final papers. Not dramatic silence. Not tense silence. The kind of silence that comes when something is truly over. I watched the pen move across the page, slow and deliberate, sealing a marriage that had already died long before I walked away. Ethan Walker's name sat there, black ink on white paper, stripped of every illusion of power he once believed protected him. He didn't look at me. Not once. And that told me more than any apology ever could. Because men like Ethan don't survive being seen clearly. They survive only as long as someone still reacts to them. I gave him nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. No tears. When the judge finished speaking, I stood calmly, gathered my documents, and walked out without turning my head. The hallway felt brighter than it had when I entered. Lighter, as if the building itself had released me. Outside, the air felt different in my lungs. I stopped for a moment on the courthouse steps, letting the sun touch my face, letting the reality settle. It was done. Not just the marriage. The version of myself who stayed quiet to keep the peace. I drove home without music, without calls, without distraction. Just me and the steady hum of the road. When I opened the front door, Noah ran toward me like he always did when something important happened. He wrapped his arms around my waist, holding tight. "Is it finished?" he asked softly. "Yes," I said, kneeling to his level. "It's finished." Lily stood a few steps back, watching me with that quiet intensity children have when they sense a turning point. She stepped closer. "Does that mean he can't hurt us anymore?" My chest tightened. Not from fear, but from truth. "It means you're safe," I said. "Both of you. Always." She nodded slowly, then leaned into me, resting her head against my shoulder. In that moment, everything I had fought for felt real. That afternoon we went to the park. Not to celebrate, to live. I sat on a bench while Noah raced across the grass, and Lily collected shells near the edge of the lake, bringing each one to me like a gift. "You're smiling," Lily said suddenly, studying my face. "I am," I replied. She tilted her head. "You don't look tired anymore." That almost broke me, because I hadn't realized how visible my exhaustion had been until it disappeared. That evening, after the kids were asleep, the house settled into a peaceful quiet. Not the heavy silence of tension, but the soft stillness of safety. I stood in the kitchen, barefoot, sipping water, when there was a gentle knock at the door. I didn't feel startled. I felt calm. Lucas stood outside, holding a paper bag in one hand, his expression relaxed but thoughtful. "I didn't want to interrupt," he said, "but I figured tonight might be strange." "That's one word for it," I replied, stepping aside. We ate together at the counter, shoulder to shoulder. No ceremony, no forced conversation, just comfort. Afterward, we sat outside on the porch, the night warm and quiet around us. "It's really over," Lucas said gently. "Yes?" He nodded. "How do you feel?" I considered the question carefully. "I don't feel victorious," I said. "I feel unburdened." Lucas smiled faintly. That sounds better than winning. It is, I said. Winning still ties you to the fight. We sat in silence for a moment, the kind that doesn't demand filling. I want to say something, Lucas said finally, and I don't want it to sound like pressure. Then don't make it pressure, I said. He turned to me fully. I don't need to be needed, he said. I don't want to replace anyone. I don't want to fix what you already fixed yourself. I met his eyes. I want to walk beside you, he continued. If you choose that. I felt something steady settle inside my chest. Not urgency. Certainty. I don't choose from fear anymore, I said. Or from loneliness. I know, he replied. I reached for his hand. Not because I needed grounding, but because I wanted connection. I choose you, I said simply. Because you respect the woman I am. Lucas exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath without realizing it. He leaned in, resting his forehead against mine. Thank you, he murmured, for choosing freely. The kiss we shared wasn't desperate or rushed. It was intentional. Weeks passed. Life found its rhythm again. School mornings, quiet evenings, laughter returning to spaces once filled with tension. Lucas became part of our world not by force, but by consistency. The kids noticed. They always do. He doesn't talk over you, Lily said one night while we washed dishes together. No, I said. He listens, she added. Yes, I agreed. Noah chimed in from the table. And he doesn't get mad when things go wrong. I smiled softly. Neither did I anymore. One evening, months later, Lucas stood in the living room looking around. Not assessing, not claiming, just appreciating. You built this, he said quietly. A real life. I rebuilt it, I replied, after it fell apart. He turned to me. I'd like to be part of it, he said. Not as a savior, not as a solution. I waited. As a choice, he finished. I stepped closer. I don't belong to anyone who tries to own me, I said. But I walk with those who respect me. He nodded. I walk with you, he said. And that was enough. 2 years later, the ocean stretched endlessly in front of us as the sun dipped into the horizon. Noah and Lily ran along the shoreline, their laughter carried by the wind. Lucas stood beside me, his arm around my waist, not protective. Present. Ethan Walker existed only as a memory now. A lesson. A chapter that had ended cleanly. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't hardened. I was whole. I had loved and lost, and still chosen love again. Not because I needed it, but because I wanted it. Walking away didn't make me strong. Choosing myself did. And choosing love, on my own terms, was the happiest ending I could have written.